Welcome everyone to another episode of Back and Forth with Becker and Orr. You can see Kevin and I are ready to go. All the topics on the bottom there, including the lead-off topic. Will there be a market correction in 2022? We're going to talk about that. You want to stick around.
Yes, welcome to the first Back and Forth of 2022, one of many that we will get for the rest of the year. But today we are going to address a whole bunch of different topics. But if you really want to catch all our Back and Forth, Financial 15 and everything else, please go to our YouTube channel and subscribe. We love having as many subscribers as we can. We're getting closer to that 1,000 mark all the time, and we love that. Also, if you want any more information, visit us at beckerorr.com on our website, or like us on Facebook. We're there as well, and we are ready to answer questions as we can. But today, we want to start with a few different topics. There is a somewhat of a theme we're seeing, but the first one that we want to deal with is, will we have a correction in 2022? We had nothing in 2021, Clint. Basically nothing. What are we looking for in 2022? How's this going to work?
Yeah, let's set the stage here. I'll pull up a chart. And this is just the S&P 500. You can see the blue box. It has a little bit of data. But first off, just look at the S&P 500. It goes from 2019, 2020, and then the furthest to the right is 2021. And 2021 is pretty much straight up.
Yeah.
And you can see the data in the blue box there. That comes from Ben Carlson at wealthofcommonsense.com. The data, the worst peak to trough drawdown in 2021 was just 5.2%. That puts it in the bottom 10% of all calendar years over the past 94 years of data,
Wow.
which means 9 times out of 10, the market is more volatile than it was in 2021. To give you an idea just how calm 2021 was. So that the question, will there be a correction in 2022? Probably. I mean, 2021 was calm seas, way too calm in my mind.
Well, yeah, and I would agree with that sort of scenario. We're going to get more than a 5%. I mean, that's sort of a scenario chart that you just showed. I mean, the mountain climber in The Price is Right would have loved that. He's never fallen off the cliff in that one. He's going to be going for a while. But yeah, I mean, as you said, I mean, this is a 10% scenario. Your odds of not having somewhat of a correction this year, I think, are very slim. Now, could it be COVID oriented? Could it be something else along the lines of midterm elections? We don't know, but you're probably going to get a bit of that. You're probably going to have people that, if they didn't want to take profit last year, may decide to take some profit this year based on interest rate increases and a variety of other things. So yeah, I think we'll have a bit of one. I'm not saying recession by any stretch or bear market, but I think a correction is definitely something we're going to have to take a look at.
I would be in the same boat. Yeah, I mean, last year, incredibly calm. So the odds of getting a repeat of that are very slim. So I do think we're going to have a rocker 2022 compared to 2021. Doesn't mean the world falls apart. We get a 50% drawdown, nothing of that nature. But could we see a 10% pullback? I think there's a high probability that will happen at some point in 2022. So we have to be prepared for that, kind of have that in mind as we go through the investments. But moving on to the next topic here, our COVID theme. We got a couple of them all in a row, Kevin. And
Yes.
We'll lead off with the Olympics, which I'll just throw you the question. Are the Olympics going to be taking place in Beijing this year?
I do believe they will. I think we're at that point right now of roughly no return. I mean, you're looking at a month from now, we are in Olympic territory. And I think the only way that this gets shut down is if you have such an outbreak in the world that almost every place is shutting down everything except for essential services. We are going to go through with it. Whether or not you have all the top athletes there, which I agree, I don't think you will. I mean, we've already found that the NHL will not allow their best players to go. So all of a sudden you've lessened that product again, like you did back in 2018. But again, what we're seeing here is I think it's just too far gone not to have it go through. So I think Beijing will put it on, but I think you're going to see a ton of restrictions that we didn't think were going to happen this time.
Yeah, and that's going to be part of it because the Tokyo Olympics, they delayed, right? So there was some preparation. Also, it happened during the summertime because you didn't have a big wave like we have now with Omicron. So I think you're going to see a lot less in terms of the athletes that attend. So what do the sporting events look like? How many people are going to be there? Will you get the best athletes in each event? I'm not sure. Like it could be from that standpoint, maybe a reduced version of the Olympics, what we see in Beijing. But it's unfortunate, but I think you're correct. They're past the point of no return. Even with Omicron and all the spread, I don't think they're going to cancel it only 1 month out from the actual event.
Yeah. And again, I think the other factor to take a look at somewhat is that, yeah, there's a lot of indoor events, but again, the outdoor events with the skiing and everything along those lines, there's enough spacing and things along those lines that really shouldn't have as big an effect just because everybody, well, theoretically, everybody's going to be masked up in the cold anyhow, because I don't want to be freezing my face off looking at this. So if you're all bundled up and cased, I think that'll be okay. But you're right. That's where it is. After, of course, the Olympics, one thing that we did have that I really was hoping to look forward to all winter long. I do every time Christmas comes. I want the World Juniors. Canada was set to win. They had a great team. Everything looked great. And then what happened?
They got canceled. And the writing was on the wall there, right? They just started inching up. First, the U.S. Had to lose by default because of COVID protocols, and then Russia loses by default COVID protocols, and suddenly more players are testing positive. And then the announcement comes that most people were expecting at that point that they just canceled the rest of the tournament. Now, it's disappointing. This is like a Christmas tradition in my house.
Yes.
We watch the World Juniors, and I did catch the game against Austria, and the star-studded Canadian team, right? They were just shooting out the lights. I was looking forward to seeing them go against some of the top talent with the other countries. And of course, we're not going to see that now. And who knows what next year will bring. But it's unfortunate. What are your thoughts?
Well, yeah, it's the same thing. I think we really had a good shot at winning gold again this year and bringing it back after last year's disappointing gold medal final. But there is possibly some consolation for some of these players. Now, a lot of them are NHL affiliated or have what's known as an ELC or an entry-level contract signed. But those that don't, players like Owen Power on the defense and Kent Johnson as a forward, who both play at the University of Michigan, they can go, and they have both said they will go and play for the Olympics. So hopefully some of these kids can get at least an Olympic dream and see how it works from there. But yeah, I mean, it is disappointing. I think theoretically, hopefully, if this virus keeps continuing the way it is, that it won't affect the juniors next year. But again, we'll have to wait and see from there. That's all
I have to admit some disappointment, though. What was it? How old is Berard again? Is he 16, 17?
16.
Yeah,
He's still got 3 years left he can play, so...
Yeah, obviously he's going to be back because at that age he's not going to make the pros. He's way too young. But still, he had 4 goals against Austria. He was just shooting out the lights. He was setting records or tying records. I was looking forward to seeing him go against the U.S. or Russia or one of the other top teams. But maybe next year. Maybe next year. Continuing our COVID theme, let's talk about the markets, right? It seems the markets care less and less about each and every variant. And I'll pull up a chart here to give some back in there. You have the highlighted regions. This is the U.S. data, looking at the U.S. S&P 500. The first highlighted region on the left side there, well, that was the initial onset of COVID. That was March and February of 2020. You can see the big drawdown. And then you go to 2021, that's summertime. That's when the Delta variant really became prominent in North America, that July-August time period. And you have a couple little blips there. And then you have the blip that we're in now, which is the shaded region when the Omicron really set in. But you can see the trend there. There's less and less of a reaction from the market. So do investors even care about COVID and about these variants? We're seeing pretty much no reaction here, Kevin.
No, I think that the more you go on, we've mentioned this beforehand, where the real reason that you see a huge market correction like that is it's something in the unknown. We don't know what it is and we don't know how to react to it. I mean, to me, and I hate to use this as a comparison, but I mean, even if you look back at 9/11, back in 2001, that event happened, the market closed for a week, everything just tanked because we didn't know how the terrorist acts were going to go. And then, 3 or 4 years later, you're going to have a terrorist attack today. The markets don't react at all because they expect this is what's going to go on. So I think COVID's sort of following that same thing. We know what COVID is. We know there's going to be different variations. We don't know how it's going to affect everybody and shutting down, but we do know what the treatment scenario looks like. And we do know what government reactions are going to be. So I think the markets take less and less of that into consideration the more that we continue down this line. So I think that, we got Omicron. There will be another variant we know of, and maybe we get a day or two correction, but I think the market's just going to fly through it. That's
I'm reminded of a quote from Morgan Housel, who's a phenomenal writer, by the way, Morgan Housel, financial writer. And he says, risk is what we don't see, right? So initially, people are very surprised by COVID. We didn't know what to expect, how the shutdowns work, what are the lockdowns going to look like, the economic impact. But you get to the variants, and I think people are fairly attuned to the process now. So it's no longer a surprise. It's no longer the unexpected boom. So we see it coming is what I'm getting at. So it's no longer the same level of risk, and we can kind of make assumptions and price that in probably better than we have in the past. So I'll pull that chart up again. You can see the initial hit there in 2020, and then the other shaded regions with the Delta variant, the Omicron variant, minimal impact, really. We haven't seen much in the way of market reaction to those.
No. Nowadays, going forward, I think it's going to be more policy and everything else that's going to dictate how the markets play. Interest rate increases, lowering what we're doing for quantitative easing, how fund flows are going to go and things like that. Yeah, I mean, COVID's going to come and go, but I think you're right in that aspect. So based on that one, does that lead us to a COVID question, or are we dealing with something else today? from a
No,
client
we're
or from a
switching
viewer?
gears for the question of the week. We're switching gears. The question of the week, certainly topical, because first part of the year, lots of folks
Yep.
thinking tax-free savings account, TFSA. And we have this question pretty much every year, but certainly this year, you're adding to the TFSA. Should I invest my TFSA now? So if someone comes in, all right, I'm topping up for 2022. Should I invest that money today, Kevin?
Well, I mean, it's sort of a twofold question, but I mean, I think in reality is if you get the money in now, it starts working for you immediately. And that's the biggest factor. So if you're looking at something that may be dividend oriented, if you're putting it in there, or if you're looking at something that goes into your balanced portfolio, early in the year is going to help you go forward with it and how much more you can take going on that way. So it allows it to gain, and it will have the up and down of the market. Now, on the other side of that coin, there's sort of, well, do I want a market time? As we've just said earlier, there may be a correction. Well, do I buy today and then find out if I waited till February, I could get everything 10% cheaper? That may be something to look at. So again, it's more or less, we know what we want to do on a financial planning basis. Putting money in early, I think, always works best. But there are going to be those that want to try and time markets, is not?
I would agree. And I'd say trying to time markets is a very, very difficult thing to do. You're more likely to get it wrong than you are to get it right. So even if there is a correction, there's no reason the correction has to happen now, or that even when the correction falls, it's going to fall at a lower price than today, right? The market can still rise and then come down, and it could still be higher than it is today. And even if there's a correction, how are you going to get the bottom? Like you could go too soon and then it falls further. So that's a very difficult game to play, is what I'm getting at. So my encouragement is often I'd invest the money, or if you are a little worried about the markets, you can break it up. Do some of it now, do some of it next month. So you can average your way in, so it's not an all or nothing proposition. And I think that's probably a better way to invest the funds. So I agree with you. Absolutely, you want the money in the TFSA earlier rather than later, so you can get more benefit from that tax-free growth. And then ideally, you'd invest it. If you are concerned with the markets, you can break it up, in my opinion, and you can kind of average your way in. So it's not an all or nothing type of proposition. But that is a good question. If you have more questions, Kevin, where should folks go? How do they get a hold of us?
They should visit us at chatwithclintonandkevin.com. I think that's the perfect place to go. I mean, it'll add what we want to do with the questions you have and how we can answer them going forward. And it can be anything related. If you want financial, if you want to talk to us about sports, movies, whatever it can be, we will be glad to get back to you on any of those sort of scenarios. Again, visit our YouTube channel. Check us out at our website at beckerorr.com and visit our Facebook. Those are things that are really going to be there. So anytime you can, we're here to help out with whatever's available. Clint, the final words go to you. What do you have to say?
I think we covered it there. With all the COVID-themed questions there and the COVID topics, everyone please stay safe, stay warm. We'll talk to you again very soon. Take care.